The Wild Robot is just a couple of weeks away from hitting theaters, and we're starting to see the first reviews after its premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival, and they're looking really good. At the time of recording, with 22 reviews submitted, the film is at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Obviously, this could change, but for the first 22 reviews to come out to be positive, that's really exciting. And I'm gonna be honest, this is probably my most anticipated DreamWorks film ever. It just looks like it lives up my alley. The animation is stunning. This is my favorite looking animation from a DreamWorks film by a wide margin. Okay, maybe not wide margin. Puss in Boots 2 looks really great, but it's my favorite. I'm all in on this premise. It just looks like a truly inspired and astounding piece of feature animation. I'm also a really huge fan of Chris Sanders, who co-directed a couple of my absolute favorite animated films, Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon. The first couple Dragons movies are probably my current favorite from DreamWorks. I will admit I was not particularly fond of Sanders' most recent directorial effort, The Croods, but that's okay. I'm always rooting for him, and this thing has me hyped. I'm already hooked. I'm all in. So let's start looking through some of these early review blurbs that we're seeing in the film and see what people are saying. So right off the bat here, we've got Nate Adams, the only critic, says, an instant animated classic, A-. Abe Friedsander says, the Wild Robot tells a sweet tale that should prove winning with any audience, adapting the popular books by Peter Brown and using beautiful animation to make a soaring cinematic experience. 8 out of 10. The one thing I'm noticing about these reviews is like most of them are 8 out of 10 or above. There's one, like Christopher Llewellyn Reed here said, there's an awkward and expositional heavy-handedness to the big set pieces. It still delivers where it counts and is constantly entertaining or consistently entertaining. He gave it a 3.5 out of 5, like a 7 out of 10. That's the lowest score we're going to see here, at least from the people who give it actual scores. There's some other really great blurbs in here. Here's one from Perry Nemiroff, who's great. We love Perry. A visual stunner with an A+ voice performance from Lupita Nyong'o. It's an all-around beautiful story about adapting and found families, one powered by infectious celebration of life. That sounds great. This is Bilge Ebiri. I love Bilge. Bilge's a really great critic. I'm a big fan of his work. With The Wild Robot, Sanders has found another way to create a visual dissonance that almost subconsciously insinuates its way into our brains and feeds the central idea of the film, and it's hypnotic. That gets me so hyped. That is just like, that is what I want to hear when I'm reading reviews about this film. And honestly, like, the film looks really, really beautiful. I just like the whole kind of found family thing is something that I'm really into. The animation style looks great. And then, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm a sucker for WALL-E and the Iron Giant. This feels like it kind of sits on the shoulders of those films. Robotic life becoming self-aware, finding itself, finding its own sense of awareness and its own self-awareness, and then connecting to other beings. That's just always gonna work for me. I mean, that's like what makes the first act of WALL-E an absolute masterpiece. It's just, you feel for this little robot, even though he is not a living being. And the Iron Giant, obviously, he connects to Hogarth. Hogarth, I think that's his name. You feel their connection. You are invested in their connection. And it looks like The Wild Robot is largely about this robot's connection to the wildlife. And I'm also just a sucker for wildlife films and like things about nature and things about animals. I like, you know, you combine that aspect of feeling and emoting towards this robot character like we see in the Iron Giant, like we see in WALL-E, and then combine that with emoting and feeling deep empathy for these animal characters, and combine that so that this robot is feeling empathy for these animals, and they are their own families, raising little animals in the woods, a robot like looking after and taking care of these animals. Oh god, this thing is gonna get me good, isn't it? Okay, real quick, I actually want to take a closer look at Bilge Ebiri's review here on Vulture. His headline is, "The Wild Robot Will Ruin You," which is, you got me, you've convinced me, I'm in. Okay, so let's read this first paragraph, which I just think is a beautifully hooking first paragraph that gets me more excited for this movie than I can even say. The great animated family films don't just tell great stories, they find ways to visually embody those stories and ignite the imagination. The medium allows for maximum freedom, so to abandon formal creativity in service of mere narrative demands seems like an unspeakable waste, maybe even a crime. Chris Sanders' The Wild Robot, based on the children's book by Peter Brown, has a somewhat familiar setup and a comforting, warm-hearted tale. But then you look at the movie. Really look at it as you might a painting, and a whole new world opens up. I highly recommend going to read this piece by Bilge. It's excellent. It got me unbelievably stoked on the film that is to come. What excites me about that is that, it's not just going to be, it's a heartfelt robot and animals found family story. They're going to love each other and they're going to be cute together. It sounds like this film has a core, central thesis and idea, and that every single aspect of the characters and their relationships build and flow into the themes of that movie. And that is something that a lot of these family animated films struggle with, especially on DreamWorks end. Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is a great example of one that nailed it in that regard. But I think for a lot of DreamWorks films, they're fun and they're silly and they're jokey. Historically, I think Pixar has been a little bit better at really honing in on thematic resonance. And so, I don't know, this is the first time in a year where I'm like, I'm so much more excited for the DreamWorks film than I am the Pixar film. Disney's been struggling a lot recently as well, but last year my most anticipated animated films were Across the Spider-Verse, The Boy and the Heron, and then what actually ended up being not my favorite of the year, but close to as much as I loved Across the Spider-Verse and Boy and the Heron was Robot Dreams. If you haven't seen Robot Dreams, another robot film, check it out. This year I am most excited for The Wild Robot, and that's crazy. There's never been a single year in my life where I am most excited for the DreamWorks film, and that's partially to do with my own personal taste. This one just looks different. This feels different than other DreamWorks films, and that is really exciting to me. However, one thing that is concerning is that as great and amazing as The Wild Robot looks, it appears as though this is going to be one of their last, if not their very last, in-house production at DreamWorks. They're shifting away from in-house productions in Los Angeles, and they're outsourcing to various animation vendors, which is not a great thing. The animation industry is obviously not in a great place right now. There's about to be a strike, very likely. This year, Kung Fu Panda 4 and The Wild Robot were in-house productions, and then Ori and the Dark, which was on Netflix, was actually done by a partner studio. And that's not to say that partner studios can't do a good job and can't make something good, but it feels very much like a cost-cutting measure. It's just a pretty blatant cost-cutting measure. And even though Kung Fu Panda did pretty well, it doesn't seem like it did well enough to warrant them deciding to bring things back in-house. They're really just going to start pushing things out to vendors. I'm so excited for The Wild Robot. I hope it does really well. I don't see The Wild Robot making the kind of money that could really change that decision at all. In fact, I don't think The Wild Robot will even make as much money as Kung Fu Panda 4. Kung Fu Panda 4 is a proven, beloved franchise. Wild Robot is brand new, but hopefully The Wild Robot continues to get these rave reviews. Hopefully word of mouth is really strong. It would be really cool to see the rare original project really surge in the box office, especially in a year where Kung Fu Panda 4 made $500 million, Despicable Me 4 made almost $1 billion, and Inside Out 2 has made $1.7 billion. Insane. Actually insane. But if The Wild Robot could get anywhere near Kung Fu Panda's box office, that would be a huge, huge win. And I'm not even saying we necessarily want or need a sequel to this movie. I'm kind of all about one-offs. Just give us a good, beautiful story. Do we need The Wild Robots? Oh, actually, that's kind of a good pitch, isn't it? Alien to Aliens, The Wild Robot to Wild Robots. A lot of robots going wild in the... call me up. No, they won't call me up because they're outsourcing. Anyways, The Wild Robot looks so great. I'm beyond excited. This is really exciting. These reviews are so great. Hopefully this will be a beloved film and a hit film. And that's all I got for you. Go see The Wild Robot September 26th. Bye.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.